to be ashamed of. I did nothing wrong. Would I do it again? Not if I knew I was going to be falsely accused, but if not for that, I've represented far worse people.
Wait, what? Then Jeffrey Epstein
represented murderers. I've represented people who have done terrible, terrible things. That's an essential part of.
That's, dude. Okay, that's yet another.
Jeffrey Epstein documents. The names of several people connected to him were unsealed Wednesday. Senior investigative correspondent Aaron Katurski is here with the follow-up. Good morning, Aaron.
George, good morning to you. The first 40 of about 275 previously secret documents have been released now. And while much of what's in them has been known before, they do...
Okay, I have to read this. Sorry. Hamas is like Hoscord, overwhelmingly unpopular, but some people might think it's okay. ISIS is like the Splinter Discord. Absolutely no one outside of them care what they say. What an analogy, dude. This community is out of control. All right. We're doing the damn thing.
Contains some new details about an old groping accusation against Prince Andrew and an effort to depose former President Bill Clinton.
This morning, newly unsealed court records reinforce the association of presidents, even the king of pop, with Jeffrey Epstein.
There's like very few new names that have come out of this, and I guess like one of them is Michael Jackson mentioned, and then the line about Bill Clinton liking him young, and then you just it's all the same old.
Who killed himself in a New York City jail while awaiting trial. The documents were part of a long-settled defamation lawsuit one of Epstein's victims, Virginia Giuffre, filed against his former paramour, Ghislaine Maxwell. The documents include arguments by Giuffre's lawyers who sought testimony from former President Bill Clinton, calling him a key person who can provide information about his close relationship with Maxwell and Mr. Epstein. Giuffre never accused Clinton of wrongdoing, but claimed she had dinner with him on Epstein's private Caribbean island. Maxwell called that a lie, and the documents show her attorneys said each and every part of plaintiff's claims regarding President Clinton has conclusively been proven false. Clinton was never deposed. After Epstein's arrest, his spokesman denied Clinton was ever on the island. After Giuffre's allegations became public, the documents also show Epstein emailed Maxwell seeming to offer advice. You can issue a reward to any of Virginia's friends, acquaintances, family that come forward and help prove her allegations are false. The strongest is the Clinton dinner. Giuffre claims she was a teen sex slave for Epstein and directed by him and Maxwell to have sex with powerful men, as she described in a 2019 interview with the Miami Herald.
The training started immediately. How to be quiet, be subservient, give Jeffrey what he wants. A lot of this training came from Ghislaine herself.
Giuffre claimed Epstein ordered her to have sex on 3 occasions with Britain's Prince Andrew, which he has denied. He said he could not recall meeting her, and he told the BBC,
"This photo of the two of them could be fake."
I have absolutely no memory of that.
Okay, I'm sorry, but this is an abdication of the journalistic responsibility to cover these issues on uncertain terms, such as this one, is absolutely unimaginably bad. Okay? Like, this interview was roundly and understandably criticized by everyone that laid eyes on it. Why is the American media making it seem as though this is like, well, here's what the possible mass pedophile rapist said? Like, there's no circumstance where you, in the American media, would ever act like you bought a fraction of what Prince Andrew brought forward in this conversation. It was so bad that the freaking Queen herself basically said, "No, you're done. You're done, Prince Andrew," and then croaked. Okay? That's insane. Why is ABC News taking up a position that is seemingly more on Prince Andrew's side than the former Queen of England?
That photograph ever being taken.
Andrew settled a lawsuit with Giuffre in 2022. The documents include testimony from Johanna Sjoberg, one of Epstein's accusers.
It feels like American news is just so willing and able and ready to always capitulate to power. Like, they just unconditionally are just like, whoever has the maximum amount of power in this situation, in this dynamic, like rape victim versus rapist, I'm siding with the rapist. Like, that's how they operate.
Who said she was seated next to Giuffre at Epstein's New York City mansion when Andrew groped her breast.
But when asked, do you have any knowledge about whether Virginia is telling the truth about whether Ghislaine Maxwell directed her to have sex with Prince Andrew, Sjoberg answered, no, only based on what I've read in the media.
When asked about meeting other famous people, she said she met...
This unironically makes it seem like this is the most pro-Prince Andrew mainstream coverage I've ever seen. And I don't think British media would allow this to happen even. Like, British media is also incredibly cucked to the royals, but even the British media itself destroyed Prince Andrew's. So it blows my mind that the American media is taking a position that is more royalist than the British media. Those guys have, like, actual beat reporters, okay? They have actual beat reporters that specifically cover the royal family, okay? We don't. We kind of fought a whole war to never have to do such a thing and not be cucked under the Commonwealth in the same way that Canada is or Australia is, right? So what is happening? Where is this willingness coming from?
Michael Jackson at Epstein's house in Palm Beach. And when she was asked, did you ever massage Donald Trump? Sjoberg responded, no.
There are more documents to come later today. Giuffre's lawyer has said the public has rightly demanded to know how Epstein operated his vast global sex trafficking enterprise and got away with it for so long. George?
Okay, Aaron, thanks. Let's bring in our chief legal analyst, Dan Abrams. Dan, case settled in 2017. Why are the documents coming out now?
Long-standing legal fight over whether these names should be released. I mean, a lot of this information has been out, right? The question was, who's who in connection with the information? Remember, typically, legal documents are public, right? The presumption is when you file something in a court of law, it's public. There are exceptions, though, when it comes to cases involving children or sexual assault. This case had a little bit of all of that. And so there have been legal battles where the judge basically said to any of the people identified, if you want to challenge your name being made public, tell me why. You can.
Yes, as a chatter also correctly repeated the age-old cliche that I always bring up at the HasanAbi broadcast. A journalist's responsibility in a situation is not to look at one side that says it's raining and the other side that's saying it's not raining. A journalist's responsibility isn't to just say, here are what the two sides are saying. A journalist's responsibility is to open the window and cop a feel, take a look, and tell you if it's raining or not. Cop a feel of the rain,
Challenge it. 16 people did that. Some of them were successful, others were not. But the judge gave everyone an opportunity to say, I want to keep my name out of this, but you got to have a reason for it.
Yeah, not everyone fought it, though.
Yeah, which is interesting, right? I think for a lot of these high-profile people, there was a cost-benefit analysis, right? Which is the sense of, this is probably going to be made public anyway. Maybe I'm going to lose this anyway. Is it really worth my being seen as having fought it if it's going to be made public anyway?
Oh, that makes some sense right there. Finally, do you think there are any chance that charges could come from this?
I think it's very unlikely. I mean, look, there's a lot of quote-unquote new information coming out, but it's not new to the authorities, right? It's new to us, the public. For the first time, we're seeing the names behind what is alleged here, but the people involved, the lawyers involved, the authorities have all known this information. It's just that the public is learning for the first time some of the names behind the various things that are alleged to have happened in connection with a civil lawsuit, again, that happened a long time ago.
Dan Abrams, thanks very much. Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for...
RFK did not fight it. He actually personally was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to be outed, so I'm just going to get ahead of this and reveal it myself.
Never before seen court documents related to the case against Jeffrey Epstein. Hundreds of pages were unsealed last night from a civil suit involving Epstein's accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell. They include names of people not accused of wrongdoing and at least one former Epstein employee facing new allegations. Nancy Chen has that story.
Former President Bill Clinton and Britain's Prince Andrew are two of Jeffrey Epstein's most high-profile associates, publicly named in the more than 900 pages of mostly unredacted documents released Wednesday. In a 2016 deposition that wasn't unsealed until yesterday, accuser Johanna Schoberg says she was with Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and Virginia Giuffre in 2001 when she met Prince Andrew at the millionaire's Manhattan home. She told attorneys that when they were taking a photo, I sat on Andrew's lap and Andrew put his hand on my breast. Giuffre previously said she was forced by Maxwell and Epstein to have...
Okay, there's weirder stuff in that the media is not bringing up. What is this? Alina Habba on the portrait of Bill Clinton in a blue dress hung in the Epstein residence. You put a picture like that in your entryway of a former president. What's that saying? That's a power play saying, I own you. Wait, why is Alina Habba...
What's going on with this?
...on the Patrick Bet David podcast? This is Donald Trump's RGB lawyer, okay, with a gamer laptop. Why is she on the Patrick Bet David podcast, dude? Saying that's a fake photo is crazy. No. That is a real photo. It's disputed whether or not it was in Jeffrey Epstein's home. I like to believe it was. She should be more worried about making sure she has the appropriate paperwork for her clients than going on the Patrick Bet David podcast, okay? What's going on? Pointing out the Clintons were tight with Epstein is Russian propaganda, shaking my head. Yeah, okay. Well, I guess call me the Kremlin then, okay? Call me a Kremlin operative because I am definitely saying that.
Sex with Prince Andrew when she was 17. He denied those allegations and told the BBC in 2019 that he didn't know Giuffre.
I have no recollection of ever meeting this lady. None whatsoever.
You don't remember meeting her?
No.
They settled a lawsuit out of court in 2022. While the documents help flesh out what many have known about Epstein for years.
That's crazy. Both ABC and CBS Mornings running like kind of pro Prince Andrew coverage is wild. Very odd.
It's unlikely that the revealed names will lead to more legal action. For example, later in her deposition, Schoberg discussed former President Bill Clinton. She did not accuse him of any wrongdoing, but said that Epstein told her one time that Clinton likes them young, referring to girls. Schoberg also said she had dinner with magician David Copperfield, who was not accused of any wrongdoing, at Epstein's home. She said the star asked her if I was aware that girls were getting paid to find other girls, but testified he told her no specifics about that. Also included in the documents are new details about former Epstein employee Sarah Kellen. Throughout the court records, she's alleged to...
No, Stephen Hawking is on the list, but and he did actually go to... He did take the Lolita Express. He did go to the island. But no, the stripped midgets trying to solve complex math problems on a blackboard that was too high is fake. Oh my God. Guys, that was a meme.
Have directed payments to certain women, scheduled massages for Epstein, and met with alleged victims at his home.
CBS News has reached out to Prince Andrew and Sarah Kellen about the allegations in these documents and to Bill Clinton and David Copperfield. We have not yet heard back. But Buckingham Palace previously told the BBC Schoberg's accusations that Prince Andrew groped her were, quote, categorically untrue. In 2019, the former president's spokesperson said Clinton knew nothing about Epstein's crimes. And in 2020, a representative for Sarah Kellen told CBS News that Kellen...
Yeah, that's so crazy. They must have not known anything about the crimes. Except, you know, Ghislaine Maxwell was at Chelsea Clinton's wedding. Prominently placed in the middle, too.
Herself was a victim of Epstein. She knows the pain he caused and deeply regrets having any part in it. Jerika?
Nancy Chen, thank you. Joining us now to talk about the implications of these documents is CBS News legal analyst Ricky Kleeman. Always good to see you, Ricky. First and foremost, what is your biggest takeaway from the release of these documents, and are we looking at any further legal action as a result?
The biggest takeaway is that many, many names are out there. But these names really are of innocent people. It's people who may have been employed. It's people who may have gone to dinner or to a cocktail party.
Stephen Hawking was there for a science conference. Epstein did a ton of philanthropy work in science, and him associating with Epstein doesn't necessarily mean he knew about or took part in anything terrible, but it's a possibility. It absolutely is a possibility, apparently, for Stephen Hawking in particular, because my man was a bit of a horn dog. I didn't know that at all, but it turns out he was a horn dog. With a thick 8. I can't. I mean, Ghislaine Maxwell made a special submarine for Stephen Hawking.
Jeffrey Epstein's home. It is not necessarily naming people who have engaged in actions that were anything like the deplorable actions of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell.
Like Bruce Willis and DiCaprio are only mentioned in the court proceedings because Jeffrey Epstein apparently used to flex to the girls that were giving him massages, like to the victims, right? About knowing Leonardo DiCaprio or talking to Leonardo DiCaprio. But there isn't any like direct involvement with Leonardo DiCaprio or Bruce Willis too. That's the difference. Like a lot of people hear a name being mentioned in a court document and think like, oh, this guy went to the island or whatever. And then there are also, of course, the other type of misinformation, which is just irrelevant random celebrities you don't like or irrelevant random celebrities you do like that, you associate with Epstein, even though they were not mentioned at all, or even though they were literally like 10 years old at the time these specifically these documents are looking at. And it's very strange that people do it. Like people were saying Miley Cyrus and all these other people were like involved when that's certainly not the case. You know, she was, I think, 7 years old at the point. That would make her a victim. So no matter how much you want to believe a particular person was involved, you know, like I'm seeing people in the chat saying, well, Leo's definitely a pedophile, so he was 100% involved. It's like, no, well, you can't make that accusation without solid evidence. And currently, as it stands, there isn't solid evidence.
Well, I think that one of the people most happy on the planet as a result of this big dump of documents has to be Alan Dershowitz, who has begged for these documents, filed for these documents to show that he was innocent. Bill Clinton made no objection to these documents being released. Probably the most unhappy person about all of this is Prince Andrew.
And when speaking about Prince Andrew, as you know, he settled in 2022, but without any wrongdoing. Do you think there's anything in these documents that you've seen so far that could be problematic for him moving forward?
Him considering 25-year-old women too old is pretty telling. Yeah, it's pretty telling that he's creepy. Okay? It's not pretty telling that he is a pedophile. I'm sorry. There's a difference. Okay? Please, let's not do this. It's ridiculous, okay? There is still a difference between someone who is creepy and someone who is a criminal. I don't know why people do the arbitrary nature of age of consent laws in the opposite direction. Depending on your politics, the more left you go, the more you say arbitrary nature of age of consent laws because they should be actually up to like 25. Okay, the more right you go, the lower you want to make that arbitrary age of consent law, where you go, age ain't nothing but a number. Let's lower it. Very odd. Please stop.
I think that it's always problematic for Prince Andrew, as well as the royal family, to have all of
the lack of Alan Dershowitz mentions in here is alarming to me in America.
This brought up again. And you know that the tabloid press in Britain will pick this all up. And again, we'll go back through Prince Andrew's association with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and these young women, really girls.
Actually, the difference between creepy and pedophiles, how much I like your Twitter post. Yeah. Yeah, leftists want it to be 25. Libertarians want it to be 15 or even younger, actually.
under the age of 17. The fact that you have yet another victim who has...
You're an arbitrary age of consent law centrist. That would make me the opposite of arbitrary age of consent law. I'm saying age of consent is 18, truther. I'm an age of consent is not arbitrary. I am a truther on the age of consent. Okay?
Has come forward. This is in a deposition that took place way back, but now it's out there again, that he had put his hand on the breast of an underage woman. That does not help Prince Andrew in his rehabilitation of his image. Do I expect further legal process? I really don't. It's too late for that.
Again, more names to come. Ricky Kleeman.
All right, let's get to the real legend, okay? The Dersh, who had phenomenal sound bites. Now, Alan Dershowitz is a tenured Harvard professor, a plagiarizer whose first wife died under mysterious circumstances, which he was not charged for, and also an enemy of Norm Finkelstein and the greatest defender of Israel. He's written a book defending the state of Israel, and not only has he consistently defended Israel, but he actually is supposed to be defending Israel in the International Court of Justice. Okay? So just remember that. As far as I know, the Dersh is not teaching, but as a professor emeritus title. Yes, he used to be a tenured professor. Now he's a professor emeritus. Yes, ironically, a lot of his book is plagiarized. Like, he is a serial plagiarizer of false information, which is what is really funny. Not only did he plagiarize a lot, but he also happened to plagiarize completely inaccurate information, which is the reason why he hates Norm Finkelstein, because Norm Finkelstein actually first ripped the original book into pieces and then ripped Alan Dershowitz for plagiarizing from a book that he had already ripped to pieces. So, just important in the context to talk about with respect to like Harvard professors that withstand scrutiny for plagiarism.
Joining us now, Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz. Professor, you are mentioned in this document. You are mentioned repeatedly and very specifically. It was the allegation against you was that Epstein forced then minor Jane Doe number 3 to have sexual relations with you, and that also you were an eyewitness to sexual abuse of other minors by Epstein. You have...
Remember, this is the, if you are queer around kids, whether you're a teacher or just in public, you're automatically grooming channel, okay? Fox News regularly claims being gay or being a Democrat or just like being queer in general means you're a pedophile groomer, okay? So when they actually have the guy who successfully represented a pedophile groomer, like a literal pedophile groomer to the elite, who worked with the elite, and his greatest ally, and never offer him a shred. Last stream you said you didn't care about the plagiarism, but now, question mark? Yes, I only care about plagiarism for my enemies, okay? Is that better? Is that something you want to hear from my mouth? My point is, everybody plagiarizes in college. It's just being utilized against people you don't like. And when people you don't like that are in positions of power plagiarize, people don't care, okay? Alan Dershowitz is a great example of this. The other example I will use is the Stanford president that was plagiarized or falsified information in his research, or even the likes of Neil Gorsuch. The standards for college professors and college administrators is actually quite bad for plagiarism, okay? The people that then turn around and go, oh, well, what about plagiarism here, okay? Or this person does not meet the muster of the excellence of Harvard, especially when it's like right-wingers that push for this narrative, is just completely frivolous, ridiculous, only brought forward in a manner to attack a person that you don't like. Okay? That's simply what I'm stating. I'm not saying I'm not saying plagiarizing is good. Okay? I hope you understand that. I'm simply stating that it is a lot more commonplace than you think, and many administrators, researchers would not be able to withstand extra scrutiny. Okay? However, who gets taken out due to accusations of plagiarism is very different. It's a very different battle. And as far as I understand, she didn't even plagiarize. They retroactively applied new citation rules to a non-applicable situation. Like, there are examples in Claudine Gay's plagiary that are improper citations of people that were already cited in the documents. It's like 47 different instances, many of which are completely ridiculous, and then some are actually questionable. Okay? My point simply is this. If you are saying like, oh, thank God we found a serial plagiarizer and like took her out of a position of power, okay, you're kind of gullible. Not even kind of gullible. You're either doing it cynically, which many on the right are, or you're simply very gullible and you got by right-wing reactionaries once again. I do not like Claudine Gay. I think she was bad. Okay? I thought that her mishandling of Palestinian protesters on campus was reason alone, if I had a magic wand, for me to fire her. I also personally don't really care about what goes on in Harvard in general. However, having said that, overall, the real reasons as to why this became a major story was because it was a perfect storm. Okay? This is just a microcosm of how rule enforcement is done in society. Many people break rules, for example, do minor crimes, but marginalized groups are more likely to face the consequences of rule breaking than other groups. Yes.
Been out there vigorously defending your name, your honor, and denying these allegations fiercely. And I want to give you a chance now that it's come out in writing tonight to get your reaction.
Well, first of all, the woman who accused me has now stated categorically that she may have misidentified me, confused me with someone else. And these documents, if all the documents are...
But Alan, you are such a uniquely beautiful man. What do you mean? This makes no sense to me. The Dersh
will prove categorically that she did misidentify me, that I never met her, never heard of her, never spoke to her. And I can prove it by independent means. I have all my travel records. I have all my television appearances. I can prove that I couldn't possibly have been anywhere near any of the people who were involved in this. I was Epstein's lawyer. Of course I flew on his plane with Ken Starr, with Roy Black, with other lawyers. We flew to meetings with the U.S. attorney, with the state attorney. And so people have to be very careful about what they're believing and when it happened. For example, as soon as Epstein was shown to be what he was, I ended my personal association with him completely, but I maintained.
Wait, what? What do you mean? You got him a sweetheart plea deal that allowed him to leave the prison and lower his sentence tremendously. What do you mean? Once it was revealed to me what Epstein did, you were his lawyer.
The legal relationship with him. I've represented some of the worst people in the world and continue to do so. That's my life. And of course I represented Epstein. Now, the one point I do want to make is that I understand all the feminist groups and the radicals. And
I'm pretty sure he maintained a relationship with him post the legal situation.
I think this is the worst thing in the world, that anybody ever had any contact with Jeffrey Epstein. Where are all those radical feminists when it comes to the Hamas rapes of young Jewish girls, sexual abuse, beheadings? They are what?
Yo! He said, listen, I may have been on that island. I may have legally defended Jeffrey Epstein. But what about Hamas? Do you condemn Hamas? That's awesome. I don't think you can use that here, man. That's like, what a wild take. God, oh man, that's awesome. This guy is the best. I love that he is the best and brightest legal mind in the United States of America. This is the best we have to offer.
Quiet. They are silent. The incredible hypocrisy of the Me Too movement. Me Too, except if you're a Jew. And I want to have a list of all the radical feminists who are pushing hard, and I understand that.
Uh-oh. Jeffrey Epstein wants a list of all the women? Hold on.
To get all these names revealed, and I want to know how many of them have ever actually condemned Hamas for the rapes that we now know occurred.
This is pretty funny because it's like, this is not an argument you can use in court at all, okay? I've talked about this quite a bit because, like, debate perverts love saying, like, well, what about this? What about that? And it's like, if you were called into question in a criminal proceeding, okay, you can't turn around and go, yes, judge, I may have murdered all those people, but what about other people that murder people all the time? This is completely irrelevant. You can't use that as an argument. Law tip. Alan Dersh is a terminal case of defense attorney brain, so please be gentle to the young man as he enters his twilight years. I also have defense attorney brain. Please be nice to me. I also condemn Hamas.
And the murders that occurred, how many have been silent, and how many, like the National Lawyers Guild, have actually approved of what Hamas did? So let's put this in context. I'm thrilled at all these things.
He spent the first minute and a half being like, yeah, sure. You know, I had a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. It was a personal one. I mean, not a personal one. It was a personal one, but then after I represented him, it was non-personal. It was just simply legal. Okay? And then the rest of the video is just talking about Hamas. I have it on good authority that Virginia Giuffre never condemned Hamas, which is why it is appropriate. My actions were appropriate, no matter what they were.
Papers have come out. I urged them. I went to court. I asked for everything to come out because I knew that I had done nothing wrong and the papers would exculpate me. What I only worry about is that maybe the judges withheld certain documents. I want to make sure every single document comes out, including the documents that cast doubt on the credibility of some of the accusers and some of the accused.
Me too, except if you're a Jew is a banger line. No, it's not. It's so bad. It's such a, no, it's like shocking how bad Zionist propaganda is in general. Like, it's genuinely shocking. I feel like all the best and brightest creative Jewish minds are just anti-Zionist, or at least like wanting to avoid being tarnished with that brush entirely. Like, there is not a single person, straight up, Me Too, unless you're a Jew, is not a banger, in my opinion.
The public has the right to see everything and make their own judgment. We do not put the country in guilt by accusation, but guilt by association.
But by the way, I think that is fair. And I still, like you, believe that in the presumption of innocence. And I don't rush to judgment.
Yeah, except unless you're gay, in which case I automatically will say to everyone that you're a pedophile. Like Fox News having, dude, this is the same energy as Tucker Carlson constantly running with this narrative that, like, you know, queer people are all gay pedophiles. What's going on? You know, back in the day, gay people were not allowed to be around children. But now, it seems like they're around children all the time. As a matter of fact, they can even adopt children. What's going on? And then having the one guy who allegedly is a gay pedophile on his broadcast and just kind of yucking it up is just so odd. It's so odd to me that these guys, it seems, think everyone and anyone is a pedophile except for the people that may or may not have been reasonably either A, convicted or defended those who were convicted pedophiles, or, you know, maybe their court cases fell apart when suspiciously a bunch of their victims perished and pulled their claims, or accused under oath is a good way to describe it. Yeah. It's so odd.
And frankly, on many high-profile cases in this country, this show, starting with Richard Jewell, we've been right. We were right about Duke Lacrosse. We were right about UVA. We were right about Ferguson, Missouri, and Freddie Gray in Baltimore, because I didn't rush to judgment.
What?
And I had impeccable sources. I have known you for years. I don't really know why you like to defend these high-profile clients. Everybody certainly deserves a defense, including Mr. Epstein, including O.J. Simpson, and you and I had wars over Bill Clinton back in the day.
Sure.
You've taken on these high-profile cases. Why? And do you regret it at all? And did you ever see anything untoward about Mr. Epstein?
I never did, and I do regret having ever met Jeffrey Epstein, because it caused me the worst few years of my life when I was falsely accused, and I was canceled by the 92nd Street Y, canceled by Temple Emmanuel, and then she...
Canceled by the 92nd Street Y? What? Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Dude, yeah. I got canceled for successfully defending one of the most famous pedophiles on the planet when I successfully defended him sex trafficking minors. Now, listen, everyone deserves a lawyer. Everyone deserves representation, okay? Everyone deserves a trial. I do agree with that. The difference, however, is that, like, in this circumstance, Alan Dershowitz definitely went above and beyond, number one, and also did have a personal relationship with this person and has gotten massages that we know of, to which his defense was, I always kept my underwear on. So this notion that, like, he is blameless and guiltless here is ridiculous. Alan Dershowitz also recently, not that long ago, wrote an entire opinion editorial on why we have to lower the age of consent laws from a constitutional perspective. So, I mean, this is a very much like if it quacks and walks like a duck, it might be a duck situation. Except in this circumstance, we're not talking about ducks, but we're talking about being a pedophile. Okay? Allegedly. Yes, for those of you who do not know, here is Alan Dershowitz defending his op-ed, suggesting that age of consent for sex should be lowered. Alan Dershowitz, the outspoken, controversial Harvard Law School emeritus professor, is defending himself on Twitter after an op-ed resurfaced in which he suggested the age of consent for statutory rape should be lowered. Dershowitz made the suggestion in 1997 in the Los Angeles Times, suggesting that 15 was a reasonable age of consent, no matter how old the other partner was. The op-ed drew new attention after it was mentioned in a lengthy New Yorker story posted online Monday that took a deep dive into Dershowitz's life and his connections, both personal and professional, to Jeffrey Epstein, a wealthy convicted sex offender who has been charged with sexually exploiting and abusing dozens of minor girls. On Monday afternoon, Richard W. Painter, a former White House ethics lawyer who is now a law professor at the University of Minnesota, wondered on Twitter in a series of tweets why Dershowitz had written the op-ed. Reasonable people can disagree about whether the age of consent should be as low as 14. Is Alan Dersh kidding? Pun intended. In a third tweet, Painter cited a line from the op-ed. Moreover, puberty is arriving earlier, so therefore the age of consent should be lowered? Alan Dersh was off the deep end when he wrote this 20 years ago. Except Alan Dershowitz could have said, hey, my bad, I didn't mean it, it was 20 years ago, but instead he doubled down on it. Your Honor, my client may walk like a pedophile, talk like a pedophile, defend pedophilia, defend pedophiles, and also suspiciously want to make it so that pedophilia, to a certain degree, actually it's a phebophilia, is legal. But make no mistake, he's definitely indeed a pedophile. Which is wild. Like, you have all of this tremendous evidence, okay? All of this stuff combined together builds a really bad case for Mr. Dershowitz. Okay? And yet, for some reason, for some weird reason, okay? I don't know why my camera is so blurry. Okay, it's back. For some weird reason, despite all of this evidence, all of this circumstantial evidence, I guess, and also direct ones, weirdly enough, it's not enough for right-wing commentators because Alan is a right-wing guy. So strange. So strange. Anyway. Where were we? Okay, let's continue.
Ultimately admitted that she may have confused me with someone else. And so, you know, things obviously have gotten a lot better. Now, of course, these revelations put my name in the headlines again. But I've never been afraid of that because I have nothing to be afraid of, nothing to be ashamed of. I did nothing wrong. Would I do it again? Not if I knew I was going to be falsely accused. But if not for that, I've represented far worse people.
Wait, what? Then Jeffrey Epstein.
Represented murderers. I've represented people who have done terrible, terrible things. That's an essential part of.
That's, dude. Okay, that's yet another weird admission to say you've represented far worse people. Emma said Israel. I'm sorry. Are you saying that, like, you know, murderers of different, like OJ is worse than Jeffrey Epstein? Is that the argument here? It's weird. What does that mean? That almost feels like you're saying, maybe, I don't know, I don't want to put words in our friend Alan Dersh's mouth, but he's kind of making it seem like Jeffrey Epstein's crimes weren't as bad as other criminals that he's defended. Like he said, he didn't even say worse, he said far worse, okay? That's wild. Kind of an odd thing to say. False equivalency, murderers are worse than a guy who ran a 30-year pedophile sex traffic ring. Yeah, no, that's what he's saying. Like far, far worse. I represented a guy who served a 3-minute ad break at the top of the hour to people that don't have subscriptions. But of course, at the top of the hour, the worst crime of all happens. A 3-minute ad break. If you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime by connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account, where you get 1 free Prime subscription a month. And that way you can represent yourself and defend yourself from the top of the hour ad break. Like Emhud said, he is currently in the process of defending Israel on charges that it's committing a genocide. So I do think that that might be maybe the one instance where it's worse than like a guy who ran a successful pedophile sex trafficking ring. Like the one, there's like very few instances where you can be like, here is a worse crime, right? And yeah, I would say, you know, ethnic cleansing is probably a worse crime. But like, that's it.
Of our system. If I don't do it, who will? I had tenure. I had an obligation to defend the most controversial, the worst people. Sometimes I won, sometimes I lost, sometimes I created a...
I thought he was suggested to represent Israel. Don't think he actually is. I really hope he is. I want it to happen so bad.
Plea bargain like I did in this case. By the way, Epstein was furious at me for the plea bargain. He wouldn't pay my fee because he thought I had done a terrible job, because he ended up going to jail and having to report as a sex offender. The rest of the world thought it was a sweetheart. But that's what criminal defense...
You thought you did a terrible job? What are you... Okay, this is bullshit. I'm sorry. No, he didn't do a terrible job. He did too good of a job. That is crazy. What are you talking about? He was dead to rights. The 2006 plea bargain is unimaginable. The Department of Justice came out with a report like a couple years ago. Where they said it was a major mistake that Jeffrey Epstein was given this plea bargain. Oh, he said Epstein said he did a bad job.
Lawyers do. I'm 85 years old. I hope the good Lord gives me the strength to continue.
Oh, Epstein thought he did a bad job. Yeah, he's lying. There's no shot. There is absolutely no shot Jeffrey Epstein said you did a bad job at this.
Jail and having to report as a sex offender. The rest of the world...
You have selective hearing? He said, Epstein, do you not listen? No, I don't have selective listening, chat. I'm looking at 26,000 chatters in here and trying to read exactly what everyone is saying while simultaneously listening to Alan Dershowitz in the worst camera audio setup of all time.
The world thought it was a sweetheart. But that's what criminal defense lawyers do. I'm 85 years old. I hope the good Lord gives me the strength to continue to represent the most despised, the most controversial, the most unpopular people in the world. Look at the hell I got for representing Donald Trump. I did that, and I lost a lot of my friends. And people say to me all the time, oh, I understand Epstein, but not Trump. Or I understand Trump, but not Epstein. You have to understand that...
I don't think anybody says I understand Epstein, but not Trump. I don't think that people say that. I think he's making up a lot of stuff. He's also contradicting himself. On the one hand, he's like, oh, I hate that I defended the worst, most despised criminals. But also simultaneously, he's like, oh, I wish I could do it again. Like, am I mishearing again?
The role of a criminal defense lawyer is to defend everybody who's falsely accused.
Well, I'll say this.
Accused or even truthfully accused. Yeah.
I think you're going to be the only one that does have the courage to say, no, it's not true. And you do make a good point. If there's exculpatory information that is not released as part of the information that is being given out by the judge, I think that's unfair to everybody, and that would be unfair to you. And if you believe it's exculpatory, I think the public should see that as well. Professor, thank you.
I don't need any more exculpatory material because the woman has already admitted that she may have clearly misidentified me, and that's enough for me. I'm going on with my life. I'm going to continue to do what I've been doing for years. But thank you, Sean, for an opportunity to present my case.
Professor, we appreciate your time as always. Thank you for being with us. Hey, Sean Han.